Hi, this is Professor Brennan again. I'm here talking to my small group communication class, and we're talking about presentation skills as a small group. I am going to take you back to the PowerPoint. We left off at members, strengths, and weaknesses. And why do we even need to talk about that? Let's look at that. Okay. I don't know why that was there. That was interesting. Maybe we talk in a different language. Okay, play from current sound. Here we are, members, strengths, and fears. Sorry, weaknesses. Members, strengths, and fears. You could think of weaknesses, though, too. Although, I don't know whether I think weaknesses or fears are a weakness, necessarily. They can be, but not necessarily, especially if we're willing to try to overcome them, right? Let's look at that. So, take into consideration the people that you know in your group. By now, you should have an idea of what people are good at. Just by spending some time with them, you would have an idea of, like, is someone a really good artist? Is someone really good at leading and organizing things? Is someone good at keeping people on task? Is someone good at public speaking, right? Are they better at that than maybe your other group members? What kind of fears do people have? What are they afraid of? What are they worried about? How can you help them overcome them? And will those fears stand in the way of your presentation? Remember, this is a presentation, so you need to work with what you got. May not be the time to push people to grow, hopefully, but I'm not against that. Or I don't mean the word against, but it's always good to help people grow. Absolutely. However, your presentation is going to be something you're going to grow from the presentation no matter what. You still want to think about what do people have to give and kind of put the focus on that and how you can bring those talents and those strengths to light to help you make a good presentation. So this is kind of exactly what I just talked about. You know, who likes to speak, who's more introverted. So if you have a situation where you're required to have an introduction conclusion as part of your presentation, you're doing a symposium style presentation, then the person who's a good public speaker, you might want to have them do both of those parts, including the part that they're going to do in their presentation, or at least have them do one of that. So that's what I mean by thinking about what your member strengths and weaknesses are. Next slide. How do we put this all together? So oftentimes it will get led to someone. Someone in your group is kind of acting like a leader. They kind of have tasks. You're letting them make all the decisions. This can be good, but not always. I mean, every group is different. It's really good for you all to be involved in figuring out how to put this together and come to some kind of consensus. Doesn't mean unanimity. Doesn't need to be, you don't all need to be on the same page, okay? But you do need to be on the same page in terms of consensus, but you don't all have to agree. That's what I'm trying to say. So you want to not just have one person figure it out, okay? Have more than one person to do that. Think of how you can delegate the duties, delegate what needs to be done. Make sure that you guys have a timeline, right? This is another part of organization stage, is coming up with the timeline of how you're going to do this and when it needs to be done. Set deadlines for yourself. Get all your materials together, stuff that you're going to be talking about. In this case, you'll have to have something written for this presentation. Get your visual materials together. Have all of that figured out, right? And how you intend to make it visible to the audience. So let's talk about visual materials for a minute. In terms of a presentation aid, we need to be able to see it. Things that you make at home, especially in this day and age, using technology is going to be your best friend. It's better. As much as I love a poster board, it is far better if you use technology for us to see things. That's really the most professional way to do it, rather than making something. So if it requires in your presentation to show us a map of something or a graph of something, find that, throw it on a PowerPoint slide, or find that link so you get there when you need to present it to us during the presentation. That's what I mean by organizing your materials, getting that all together, be aware of what you're going to need and in what order you're going to need it in. Know that. Have that written down. Things that you do not want to do and do want to do and don't want to do. So make sure in the presentation that all your equipment works. Okay? Don't assume, this is what I don't want you to do. Don't assume that you can hook up your computer, that your computer is going to work with the school's technology. Don't make that assumption. Know that beforehand. Don't show up and just hope for the best, because that's really going to there's already enough stress on presentation. You don't want to put that extra stress on yourself. You want to have that figured out. Okay, you want to know how the equipment works and what equipment you need. What are you going to do if that equipment fails? What's your plan B? Every good presenter always has a plan B. Let me tell you why you need a plan B. There's anxiety in presenting. Everybody wants to do a good job. There's just anxiety in being up in front of people and feeling the nakedness of that. So being prepared and having that plan B will help alleviate that anxiety just from that part. Now, if you're a person that's already anxious in front of groups, then you really want to do this preparation, right? And if that's not your cup of tea, if you're not the person in your group that is like the Boy Scout or the Girl Scout, right? That makes sure, that thinks like all the possibilities that could go wrong. If that's not you, then there's somebody in your group that is like that. Or one of you is going to have to develop that skill. So that's the person that I'm really talking to. If the group can think that way, but if you have a person in the group that thinks like that, that's going to help you. Practice with your visual aids. There's nothing worse than a student giving a presentation. I mean, I shouldn't say there's nothing worse. I'm sure there's things that are probably worse than that, but it's not helpful when a student gives a presentation and they're constantly looking at the PowerPoint while they're talking, as if the PowerPoint is going to change or something, or they're talking at the PowerPoint or at the slide or at the graph or at the picture, and they're not talking to their audience. Right now, I'm looking at you in the camera lens and I'm talking to you. So it looks like I'm talking directly to you. You know, I can't pan the audience in the class, but that will be your job. But you want to practice with your visual aids so you know them. Not so you don't know them, you don't really know what you're doing. Again, adding to your anxiety. There's so many ways that you can alleviate that presentation stress by having this kind of stuff figured out and preparing ahead of time. Don't pass anything around in a presentation. That's a big no-no. Think about for a minute why you don't pass anything around in a presentation. Right, exactly. Someone in my class said it. Because it's distracting. And the minute we're distracted and we want to know what that thing is, we're not listening to you anymore. And it totally defeats the purpose of your presentation. Don't pass anything around. If we need to physically hold something or see something, we can see it after the presentation, but not during. You never want to do that. Use visual aids or audio aids that are relevant to your speech, not something that has nothing to do with, it has to help you. An aid means it assists. It helps something. It makes something more, there's more clarity, there's a better understanding. Oftentimes we use visual aids to show something that we can't really say in words. It's better said visually, like a graph, right? A graph has the ability to show something in a larger picture that can be understood and conceived better than talking about it. So visual aids should help you, but it can't take the place of your speech either. All right. Preparing for the presentation stage. What do I mean by that? Checking your language. Is it clear, descriptive, appropriate? In presentation, a presentation is formal. We don't use curse words. You're not going to hear damn, suck, F word. You're not going to hear words like that. You don't use words like dude either, or man, or whatever other language, slang language. Slang is out. This is a professional thing. You want to treat yourself like a professional. You're learning how to be a professional in college. How are you going to do that? You may be going into a career where you have to do presentations. So in that, there's a formality to it, and how we speak, how articulate we are, and we want to bring our best self. Think of like how you might in a job interview, not a job interview that you really want, how you present yourself. Think of it that way. Practice out loud. Oh my God. I can't even say this enough. Practice out loud. People, I want you to think about for a minute all the thoughts that are going through your head and how fast they go. Practice out loud. The energy it takes for you to speak a word is much slower in that than what's going through your head. Number one. Number two, anybody that's done any theater or any kind of training like that knows that we practice out loud. Why? Because there's a thing called body memory. And the more you say it out loud, the more you'll create this pattern in your mind that you're going to know your whatever presentation part, speech that you're doing, you're going to know it better. You may not know every single detail, but you'll have an idea. Your brain will start organizing it so it will be familiar to you. You also want to do it with your group members. Why? Because you're doing the presentation together. And you all should know what each other is talking about. You all should be able to talk about, you might be an expert on your particular part, but you all should know each other's part. You should be aware of that. This is your topic that you've chosen to talk about. So know the whole topic. Practice those visual aids together. Again, just like I said before, you've got to do that. Manage your time. So figure out if your presentation is 20 minutes, then how long is it going to take? And you don't have to be to the letter. Like you don't have to break it up. If you have 4 members, you each get 5 minutes each. Maybe that's not going to be required for one member. Maybe one member needs 2.5 minutes or 3 minutes, but some other member is going to need 6 because their part is more hefty. Okay, so be smart about this. And it's only to be noticeable if you had 4 members and 3 members have 1-minute speeches and the other ones takes the rest of the time. That would be obvious that someone's not prepared. But try to balance it out, right? And the best you can. It doesn't have to be exactly equal. That's not that important. The important, remember, you're looking for the whole of the presentation. That's what you're looking for. And how are all those pieces going to fit into the whole? Think general systems theory, right? That's what you're looking at. All you guys represent the pieces of making the whole. The whole is the presentation. Okay. When you practice together, help each other. That's what it means to give honest feedback. It doesn't help people to say, hey, you did a good job, man. That's really great. When what they were doing was terrible or they could work on something. Tell them. This is how we help each other. You don't have to be mean about it. You can just be like, you know what? I really liked it when you did this. I really liked it when you brought that. Your visual aids are really, really good. And I think they're going to be really helpful. And I also think that maybe when you show the visual aids, you might want to tell us a little more about it so we know what we're looking at. That's an example of good constructive criticism, right? You don't have to be mean about it. You can be helpful about it. Remember, this is for the whole group. So you all want to do well and help each other. All right, we're going to stop here and I'm going to come back. I'm going to do one last video. Thanks, guys.